no stopping it. I'm headstrong, in peace with myself like Islam. I'm stupid, 100 niggas form around me.
Hello. Welcome back to another college football video. Pardon me if I sound a little slow. It's 5 a.m. I'm working overtime so I can get this video out before the games start. Uh, let's get right into it. Week 5 poll. After the legendary Week 4, what do we got? Well, Georgia has a slide to itself because so much change took place in this poll. Georgia, 4 weeks into the season, has remained the constant, remained the number one. They beat up on UAB. And Carson Beck had his best game, 345 yards, 4 touchdowns. Dewan Edwards continues to help make this running game much improved from the first 2 weeks. Uh, 3 receivers over 50 yards this game. Brock Bowers had his best game by a mile. He looked dominant out there. Uh, I mean, it was sloppy though. 3 turnovers. Defense only had 1 sack. You know, they're still not operating at 100%, which is absolutely terrifying. There are going to be a couple SEC games where they just destroy some teams. I think it's going to start this week against Auburn. They're going to absolutely murder some teams that are a lot better than the teams they've been playing, and we're going to be like, oh God, where was this in the first month of the season? But it's coming. I can feel it. Number 2, we got Florida State. This is it's so you could have the 2 through like 10 in any order. It's so strange. But Florida State, I put at number 2 because winning at Clemson, there were some other big wins this week, but I think this might be the most slept on. Jordan Travis, look, my take on Jordan Travis so far is he's not in my personal Heisman conversation. Just because he's been the quarterback of 2 massive wins doesn't necessarily mean that I think he's played amazing. He has not played bad. He's played very good actually. But we're talking about Heisman level, he's not been there yet for me. But winning at Clemson with 22 rushing yards, I don't know how many people have ever done that. So shout out to him. Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman continue to be absolutely unstoppable. We have to see what team has tall enough corners to be able to slow those 2 guys down. And then what did I say about Florida State before the season started? Why did I have them higher than most other people? Because they're the most balanced team, one of the most balanced teams in the country. They won this game because their defense gave them a touchdown when the offense wasn't doing anything. That's what won Florida State this game. That's why they're at number 2 for me. Number 3, Ohio State. Hard to argue this was the most impressive win, beating a top 10 team on the road through so many obstacles. Kyle McCord outplayed Sam Hartman, who is a Heisman contender this season. He outplayed him. 126 rushing yards. I mean, 60 of that came from Trayvon Henderson on one play, a massive touchdown. So outside of that, they really did not get much of a run game going. Marv left the game briefly due to injury, came back. He lost his personal matchup with Benjamin Morrison. Emeka didn't have his best game, but he was the guy, especially down the stretch, making the massive play on, 3rd down and 19. Defense didn't get a single sack or takeaway, but they still held Notre Dame scoreless in the first half. Big stops in the second half as well. I mean, such a hard-fought game. I don't know how many teams would have beat Notre Dame in that environment. Ohio State did it. They showed me a lot. They're back to where they started the season for me at number 3. Washington. They dropped down because they didn't get to play a Clemson or a Notre Dame. Florida State and Ohio State both had the opportunity to get massive wins and jump up in the ranking. Washington did not get that opportunity. That's fine because they took their chance to beat up on Cal. And that final score is very misleading. I know you may look at 32 points given up to Cal and be like, oh, what happened to Washington's defense? The game was well over. I think it was like 52-10 going into the fourth. So it was well over. Their defense actually played very well. Michael Penix actually had this Michael Penix might have played his worst game because he only had 309 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he threw a pick. So take that for what you will. They are getting the run game going. Back-to-back weeks where I think you could say they ran the ball very effectively. Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze both had over 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jen McMillan didn't play this game, so like, you know what? Let's just feed Polk and Odunze this game. And defensively, they had 3 takeaways. So Washington looked very good. They just didn't have the same opportunity that Florida State and Ohio State had to play a big name opponent. Penn State, I actually had to audible this right before the video. I had Penn State at 4, but I dropped them back down to 5 because yes, beating Iowa 31-0 is impressive, but it's Iowa. Iowa has absolutely no offense still. Drew Aller, though, look, I'm buying into the hype. I am absolutely buying into the hype because you guys tell me how many first or second year quarterbacks have ever thrown for 4 touchdowns and no picks against Iowa's defense. I'll wait. Show me the guy and then tell me how bad he was because that takes something special. They also were able to run the ball extremely effectively, 215 rushing yards, and then defensively. In the last 2 games, Penn State's defense has 9 takeaways. So take that for what you will. They're playing at an insane level right now against 2 Big Ten opponents with great defenses, and they gave up 76 yards. Iowa put together 76 yards of offense in 60. I mean, that's a little over a yard per minute now. So, oh my God, yeah, dominant win for Penn State. Michigan, I had them dropping 4 spots because just look at what the other teams did quickly if I could. Uh, oh shit. Florida State wins at Clemson. Ohio State wins at Notre Dame. Washington, another dominant offensive performance. Penn State beats a ranked team 31-0. What does Michigan do? They beat Rutgers. Oh, but woohoo, they beat Rutgers. Michigan has done all 4 of their scores. It's been like 30-3, 31-6, 30-7, 31. Like all their 4 games have been like exactly the same and none of them have been insanely impressive. They're beating bad teams by just enough to not, really worry about them. But their schedule is the easiest in the country, easiest in the whole country until they play Ohio State, Penn State. So they haven't impressed me. You got to impress me in the first month of the season because Florida State, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State, they've impressed me. Michigan has not impressed me. That's why they dropped all the way down to 6. You can check the stats. Blake Corum has gotten going. That's one of the good things. Defensively, obviously, they've been amazing. They're allowing single-digit points per game. They haven't given up at 10 points yet this season. Uh, didn't turn it over only 3. They're playing very good football. But when all these other teams are doing great things and you're not, you're just gonna drop in the rankings for them. Right now on a neutral field, I'd take every team above Penn State over. Sorry, I'm taking every team above Michigan over Michigan on a neutral field as of right now. Number 7, Oregon. They did unspeakable things to Colorado with 10 million people watching, with everybody on Colorado's meat. Oregon, uh, they should have went to jail for what they did to Colorado. They treated Colorado like last year's Colorado. Bo Nix was amazing. My prediction on this game was like dead on accurate, except I thought Colorado would do a lot more offensively. I was wrong. Oregon shut that shit down. 7 sacks. Didn't let Shedeur do anything. Troy Franklin is amazing. I'm glad I hopped on that train early in the season. Yeah, Oregon's very good. They beat the brakes off Colorado, and you just have to jump in my rankings. They look so good to start the season. Texas at number 8. I have Texas in the exact same spot I had them after they beat Alabama, not higher, not lower. Uh, they've won 2 games where they scored over 30 and they held their opponents to 10 or less. So, yeah, good job from Texas these last 2 weeks. Quinn Ewers, his best game since Bama, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns. They are able to run the ball again. They are the last 2 weeks very similar to Washington. They have discovered their run game. Brooks, I think it's Jonathan Brooks. He looks to be their new number 1 running back. Keep an eye on him against Kansas. I think he's going to have a massive game. 4 receivers on the season over 120 yards. The 4 guys you'd probably predict preseason, but part of that explosive offense. Every game over 30 points. Defensively, 5 sacks. Texas is very good. I just need to see them play a good team again because outside of Bama, it's been Rice, Wyoming, and Baylor. So let me see Texas against Kansas this week, and we'll see if they finally get above 8 for me. USC, last week was a bye. They dropped 2 spots. This week, They let Arizona State hang in there, so they drop another 2 spots for me. Caleb Williams was amazing as he always is, and I won't just breeze by that. He has been incredible. He should be one of the Heisman finalists because at this point, 4 games in the season, he's been outstanding. The real impressive thing about USC's offense has been how well they've been able to run the ball. Whether it's at first it was Austin Jones, and now Marshawn Lloyd has just burst onto the scene, over 100 yards a game for him. Their running game is the hidden weapon on this team. 6 receivers, six over 125 yards in the season. Defense, you're reading that correctly. They had 8 sacks. Not in the season. They had 8 sacks against Arizona State, and they still gave up 28 points. How the hell do you do that? I don't know. They had 2 takeaways, but having to go the distance with Arizona State, I get it. It's conference play, all that, but you don't love to see that for USC, especially when all these other teams are blowing out teams doing it big. So they dropped another 2 spots for me. Utah, my opinion, and look, spoiler alert, I'm recording this on Friday night. I know Utah lost to Oregon State. However, this video still has to be solely based on week 4. Pretend in my mind, I'm 2 days before this. I don't know what happened at Oregon State. So, ignoring that completely, Utah, my opinion has flip-flopped on them so much because I thought Cam Rising would play week 1. I thought he'd play week 1, certainly week 2, for sure week 3, and absolutely week 4. He hasn't played at all, and they're still 4-0. It is incredible. That shows the depth of this team, especially because it's not just Rising. They're missing multiple starters on both sides of the ball. Defensively, it's without a doubt the best defense in the Pac-12. Without a doubt, one of the top 5 defenses in the country, probably. Jonah Ellis is ridiculous. He's playing himself in the fucking first round of the draft. But, they suck offensively. They suck offensively with no Cam Rising. It's expected. They're not just missing Cam Rising. They're missing Brent Keith. It's very tough for Utah to move the football, okay? I understand that. 102 team rushing yards, but defensively, UCLA was one of the best running teams in the country. They got 9 yards against Utah. 7 sacks, 2 takeaways. Utah is on their second and third string quarterbacks, and they're beating ranked teams now. So I had to move them into the top 10 and just give them that last respect. And after this loss to Oregon State, I have to admit, I don't think they're going to see their way back in the top 10 this season. So it was fun while it lasted for 3 days. LSU, nail biter, exciting, very electric game versus Arkansas. They managed to pull it out. Jaden Daniels, since the Florida State game, has been on a tear. 356 yards this game with 4 touchdowns, 189 rushing yards as a team. I'm telling y'all, Logan Diggs really unlocked this rushing game. He has been spectacular so far. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Would you believe that they are a very good duo? Brian Thomas over 400 yards on the year, Malik Neighbors over 500. Look at what they did this game. 4 combined touchdowns. Oh my, they were incredible this game. LSU's defense made just enough plays. KJ Jefferson was great this game, but he did throw 2 picks, got sacked 4 times. They did just enough. They squeaked out. Look, this game could have very easily gone Arkansas. They were making play after play. LSU squeaked out this win. So all credit to them. That was a tough one. Alabama moves up 2 spots for me. I thought Ole Miss was going to win. Ole Miss came to play, but just not offensively. Alabama's defense is better than I thought it was going to be. Very much better. They corrected a lot of mistakes they made against Texas. In these last 2 weeks, they've been absolutely dominant. Jalen Milroe was far and wide the best quarterback they had. I'm glad all the casuals are silenced now. I mean, everybody with a brain knew Milroe was the best already, but for some reason we had to see Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner play to really see how ass they were. Thankfully, now we don't have to worry about any of those comments or questions anymore. But Alabama, look, guys, it still was not pretty. Just because they beat Ole Miss doesn't mean all their problems are solved. They still allowed 4 sacks. They still struggled to run the football. Milroe still threw an interception, so it's not good whatsoever. This is now their second time at home where they put up 24 points. That's not enough. Ole Miss didn't come to play offensively. That's fine and good. You won the game, but you think Tennessee and LSU are going to put up 10 points? You're dead wrong. So you got to figure out ways to fix this offense because you're going to get into some shootouts sooner or later. So Alabama moves up 2 spots, but still not sold on them whatsoever. Notre Dame obviously is going to drop. They dropped 3 spots for me. Ohio State's a very good team, but they absolutely blew this game. Look, I'm not one of the guys to just sit back and be like, "Oh, this team should have won this game." But if you were paying attention, Notre Dame lost that game in 4 separate occasions. Missed field goal, didn't convert on 4th and an inch, scoreless in the first half, dropped the game-winning interception on the final drive, gave up a 3rd and 19 in the reds. How do you even how give up a 3rd and 19 in the red zone? Sam Hartman massively disappointing. It was just bad all around. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. If I was, I don't know how I would have been able to sleep that night. It was so frustratingly bad how they lost this game. But again, my rankings are based off who I think would beat who, so I think Notre Dame would beat every single team below them on this list. So they're still at 13 for me. 14, I got Oklahoma. I already admitted I was wrong about Oklahoma. I did not expect them. Well, I didn't even have them ranked to start the season, and I certainly did not think they would be top 15 at this point in the season. But they've looked good so far. Cincinnati, it was their toughest game. It was the first game starting conference play. Um, Only 20 points offensively, but I mean, I don't really know how. I didn't watch the game live, but Dylan Gabriel had another great game. Just really a dark horse in the Heisman race. 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. They still, guys. I mentioned one of my concerns for them was losing Eric Gray. I didn't know how they're going to run the ball. That is still certainly a concern for them. But a new wide receiver one has emerged at Oklahoma. His name's Andrew Anthony, transfer from Michigan. I was in desperate search of who was going to be the number 1 receiver, and it turns out it's Andrew Anthony. So congrats to him. He's been great to start the season. Defensively, they were very good. 6 points allowed to Cincinnati. Defense came to play. They've been very good all season. So Oklahoma, they dropped a spot just because some other teams had to rise. But yeah, Oklahoma, a good week. Washington State. I watched this game. It was absolutely incredible. Beat number 14 Oregon State at home. The final score was a little deceptive. The game was kind of over. They were up like 20 going into the fourth. I mean, they were playing just not to lose. They were playing safe in the fourth, and the final score was closer than it should have been. But Cameron Ward played one of the best games I've ever seen. He was dealing, absolutely dealing. And I mean, this is Washington State's second ranked win of the season if you want to include Wisconsin. I get it, but Cameron Ward in this passing game, it is possible that both Washington teams have top 5, possibly top 3 passing games in the entire country. That's very possible because Cameron Ward was down his number 1 receiver. Let me tell you what their number 2 and number 3 receivers did on Saturday. They combined for 15 catches, 333 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's Josh Kelly and Kyle Williams. Absolutely. My jaw was on the floor for like 80% of this game, just based off what Washington State did offensively. And then defensively, they were very good. Very good in the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, they collapsed, gave up too many big plays, but man, I was impressed. I was gobsmacked by what I was seeing out of Washington State. So they jump up 6 spots because I was just that impressed. Notre Dame. What the fuck? What am I? It's 5:30. Please forgive me. North Carolina, they beat up on Pitt. First ACC opponent, I believe. Yeah, they needed this game. They needed this game. Drake May, first big game without a turnover. Well, I guess you could say App State, but I think this is Drake May's best game. Not really able to run the ball effectively. Did get 3 touchdowns though. Marion Hampton had 1. 5 sacks allowed. They got to clean that up. Certainly, you got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Got to keep him up on his feet. But defensively, I think they played very well. To hold Pitt to 24, 2 sacks, 3 takeaways. It was a good game for North Carolina. Obviously, they got Miami in a week or two. That is going to be the one everybody should have their eyes on. That's what I'm waiting for. And, as of right now, my opinion of them is not going to change much at this point in the season. So we got to wait till they get another big game. Speaking of Miami, number 17, they beat up on Temple, almost identical to last week against Bethune. They beat them 48-7. They beat Temple 41-7. Van Dyke stats almost exactly the same. He's been on a tear so far to start the season, except this game, they were able to run the ball even better. 323 rushing yards. Good God. Zero turnovers, zero sacks allowed. Defense, 3 sacks, 3 takeaways. This was almost a flawless game for Miami. They played start to finish just on a tear. They're playing probably the best football in the ACC right now. And I don't say that lightly. I got 4 ACC teams in my top 20, and then you got Clemson. Right now, Miami is just comparatively, they're playing the best football out of everybody because they're dominating, absolutely dominating. Whether it's ranked teams or it's Temple or Bethune, they're not dropping to the level of their competition. They're on one right now. Their game against UNC is going to be must-watch TV. Duke at 18. They beat up on UConn. It's a typical Duke game. I love the way Duke plays. It's boring. The stats aren't going to flash on the screen, but they don't. They protect the football and they play great defense. That's what Duke does. That's what Duke does. If you don't like it, don't watch them. But don't get mad when I rank them in the top 20. Point blank, Duke 4-0. You'd love to see it. They're going to keep climbing up the rankings from. Ole Miss lost to Bama. I already spoke on it earlier. Very disappointing. I had Ole Miss just shooting up my power rankings the first 3 weeks of the season. Clash versus Bama. Offense didn't show up. Jackson Dart struggled. They were missing Trey Harris this game. Zachariah Franklin played for what it's worth, but he only had 1 catch. Quinshon Judkins is not at 100%. And if he's not at 100%, Ole Miss is at like 80%. They need him to not just be good, but to be great to beat these top teams, and he was not so far this season at all. 5 sacks allowed as well. Their defense was outstanding. This might be the best defensive performance we see out of Ole Miss all year, and they blew it. Um, yeah, just shocking, really. I was, if you would have told me they hold Alabama to 24, I would have said they won easily. But their offense, they were victims of Alabama's defense on Saturday. So it is what it is. They're still a top 20 team, though. They'd beat a lot of teams. They'd beat a lot of teams in the country right now. So my opinion on them does not change too drastically. Number 20, we got Missouri. 4-0, beat an undefeated Memphis team. Brady Cook, same exact yards. Back-to-back weeks where he has 358 total yards, 2 touchdowns this week. They ran the ball way better than they did against Kansas State. 201 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry. Luther Burden, look, the hype before the season, I'm not saying I didn't believe it, but I'm like, who the hell is this Luther Burden guy? I know now. I will remember the name because he's over 500 yards on the season. Defense came to play. It was a close one because Memphis is not a bad team, but you got to win this game. You got to stay undefeated, and they're all the way up at 20 for me. So shout out to Missouri. Kansas State 21. They put on an offensive clinic versus Kansas State. And Will Howard, he's been good so far this season. He played through an injury. DJ Giddens got about 40 touches for 293 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not on the season. That there are a couple running backs who we thought were going to be studs. That might be better than Quinshon Judkins' stats on the season. I'm almost certain it's better than his stats on the season. DJ Giddens was unstoppable on Saturday. Offense was on a roll. Defense got 4 sacks, 2 takeaways. Kansas State, very impressive. This is why I kept them ranked. After they lost to Missouri, I knew they bounced back, and they did that and then some versus UCF. Tennessee moving up 3 spots as well, same as Kansas State. They beat up on UTSA 45-14. Joe Milton looked better than he did against Florida, almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Look, they pound the ball. They run the ball absurd unless you're playing Florida. With that being said, though, 300 rushing yards, absolutely incredible. The receiving issue, look, you lose Jalen Hyatt, you lose Cedric Tillman. I'm not expecting you to find a replacement, but I should know who the #1 receiver is after a month. Okay, and I do not know that yet. 4 sacks, 3 takeaways from the defense. They play South Carolina this weekend. We got to figure out some things about Tennessee because if they don't come to play against South Carolina, they're going to be 0-2 in conference play and lagging behind in that division. So Tennessee, massive game against South Carolina this weekend. Last two. Did I not have a number 23? You gotta be fucking kidding me. You gotta be fucking 1 second. I didn't have a number 23 team, did I? Well, fuck me. My number 23 team is Kansas. They're undefeated. They just beat, who the hell did they beat? God, I was so, oh my God, this is what happens. This is what happens when you fucking make a video at 5:30 a.m. God damn it. Who the hell did they play? God damn it. This is I thought I did so well here. Let's just take a quick look at Kansas. They're number 23 for me. They jump up 3 spots from unranked to 23. Who'd they just beat? They beat BYU. How could I fucking forget that? All right. Well, they beat BYU in a must-win game. Both teams undefeated. BYU coming off the win versus Arkansas. And Kansas did what they do best. They run the fucking football. If you didn't know they run the football well, welcome to Kansas. Jalen Daniels is very good. They have multiple talented receivers, Lawrence Arnold, Luke Grimm, but they run the ball well because Devin Neal is a beast. That's why. Keith Slovis is very good. BYU's offense is explosive, but Kansas forced multiple turnovers, got to him 3 times, and yeah, Kansas with a good win to be or put themselves at 4-0, and I got them ranked at 23. I'm so sorry, Kansas fans. I am on the Kansas hype train, by the way, so me leaving them off this is blasphemous. Number 24, I got Oregon State. They're lost to Washington State. Yeah. DJ, look, he's not good enough. I'm sorry. It hurts to say because I kind of wanted him. I shit on him a lot when he was at Clemson, so I did want to see him turn it around, and he looked good the first 2 weeks. Last week was shaky. This week, man, it was very, very bad. And now that I know hindsight that they beat Utah, he still didn't look good in that game, guys. He still made too many mistakes, missed too many throws, and overall, they're just not confident enough in DJ. Let him just kind of, I don't know how to put it, but you kind of just got to live and die by his arm. You went out and got him in the transfer portal, but I don't know if he's going to be good enough to get them back to 10 wins this season. We're going to have to see, but they can't get into these Pac-12 shootouts, okay? But they do have an amazing running game. Damian Martinez, they have weapons on this offense, guys. But defensively, they let me down because maybe Cam Ward's just that good, but he exposed a lot of things about this Oregon State defense. But maybe all this is pointless because they just beat number 10 Utah. But that's for the next top 25 video. Colorado, you see what it says there. Oregon treated them like fucking a JV team. 1 second. Oregon dogged them, Oregon dogged them, Oregon dogged them. It was very tough. There were like a dozen teams in contention for this number 25 spot, I have to be honest. And if you're just asking me who I give the nod to, it's going to be Colorado. It has to be Colorado. So all you can really do is keep it close against USC, and, we'll see what happens. Do I have them winning? Absolutely not. But make it a fun, entertaining game, and, that's all you can ask for here. This video turned to complete shambles by the end. I'm sorry about that. I want to stop sharing. Oh, you're fucking kidding. There we fucking go. If you enjoyed this video, somehow leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out. But niggas don't know how to act.